what's real, what's deception, what should we be paying any attention to, what is it that's driving us insane?
He knew the world would not be the same.
Something happening here.
Truth Connections.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Good evening and welcome everyone to Truth Connections Radio. That was music you were listening to by Endo Trigger. He's a guy out of Baltimore named Unitas Quick, and his music is available on SoundCloud and Reverberation.com/Endo Trigger. The show's intro, I don't know if you heard that or not, but it was made by our very own team member, Thomas Voot. I'm going to go through this quickly because I know we're behind. I also would like to mention a few people, one being Tamara Navidad, who is my esteemed team member, and I cannot do any of this without her because I'm a pinball kid and obviously computer challenged. So I apologize for all that. Next show will be much more smooth than this. And also joining us will be a gentleman today by the name of Rand Porter, who is a transplant from New York and Connecticut, now in Las Vegas, and certified Reiki master in various forms of Reiki, and one of my foremost people on the 9/11 truth. Not as much as you, Susan, but he's pretty darn close. So we're going to bring him on as soon as we can, and I'd like everyone to welcome Susan to the show.
Yay, I'm glad to be on. This is great.
A wonderful intro for you too, Susan, but that's going to go away for now. I'm just going to let you have the floor.
Oh no! Listen, no, please give me the intro, and we're starting from the top, so we're good.
Okay. Well, on air with us today is the lady who is nothing short of an American patriot and hero, as far as I'm concerned.
See why I wanted the intro?
You are the intro.
Thank you.
Susan Lindauer, a woman who, after 9/11 happened, was was indicted on the Patriot Act because she had information that everyone else wanted, and she wanted to tell that information. And because she wanted to tell the truth and be an honorable person, she was sent to jail for a year, basically, and under indictment for 5 years for doing nothing wrong. And I just think you are one of the most joyous, gracious, well-grounded people that I've come across, and I believed everything that you said as soon as I heard you say it. So
you've
got a fan in me, Susan, and I bow to you because you've been through a lot, and you've shown remarkable poise and grace under extreme circumstances. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about how you came to be here today?
Well, I tell you, it's really important because I'm having sort of a deja vu, and and everybody. Sometimes I'm accused of being paranoid. Please remember that I was held under indictment on the Patriot Act for 5 years with secret charges, secret evidence, secret grand jury testimony. I was locked up in prison. Of that 5 years, the government fought violently, refusing to give me a hearing. It wasn't until 4.5 years after my indictment that I was allowed one morning of evidentiary testimony to prove my story was true, and I was allowed 2 witnesses. The government fought to stop those 2 people from coming into court in 5 years.
Wow.
And my 2 witnesses proved that I was an asset covering Iraq and Libya at the United Nations for the intelligence community, and that I definitely had a long-term relationship with my defense intelligence handler, Paul Hoven, and that this was easily established. So this was totally obviously right to everybody. And then the second witness confirmed that I gave advance warning about 9/11 and that he had told the FBI and the Bureau of Prisons about my 9/11 warnings. He told the FBI in September of 2004, 2 months before the 9/11 Commission issued its report. He told me and told the court that it was obvious to the FBI that the FBI already knew about this from other sources, because he talked with the FBI about the existence of the other sources, and we know that by March of 2004, my CIA handler and defense intelligence handlers had both told the FBI and the New York Times about the 9/11 warnings, and the New York Times squashed the story. Now, this is the New York Times that's covering Wall Street.
Wow.
Okay, This is their home territory.
Absolutely.
The World Trade Center is in their hometown, and they lied to the people of America. It lied to the people of New York, lied to the families who were directly affected by the attack. It was a horrible, horrible thing, and I was ground zero punching bag. I was the eye of the storm, the eye of the hurricane, if you will. That's kind of how I see it, is that I was standing right in the middle, and all this violence is going on all around me, and I can just turn my head in any direction, and I can see with clarity everything that's going on.
Wow.
And that's why they came for me. But I will tell you, I was arrested in March of 2004. I was held under indictment until January of 2009.
Can you hear me?
You're there, Rand.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Rand just
yeah.
joined the chat, so I just wanted to say hello to Rand.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hello.
We had technical difficulties, and I love everyone for sticking around, and I apologize and promise it will not be this way next time. But go ahead.
No. But anyway, of those 5 years, I just want to say to everybody, I was arrested 30 days after I requested to testify on Capitol Hill, and I had contacted the offices of Senator Trent Lott and Senator John McCain requesting to testify about Iraqi pre-war intelligence because, of course, as a lot of you know, I was the U.S. intelligence asset covering Iraq at the United Nations before the war. So they were hiding so much from you. And now, and the reason I'm going into this history is because past is prologue. I do feel that given in the 2012 election, the fear factor on Capitol Hill is so intense. They have effed up so badly. It would be so easy to do the right things, but they keep doing the wrong things. They keep screwing America. And if there's one thing that Congress does not like, it is accountability to voters. They want to keep those perks. They are some of the most dishonest, corrupt, untrustworthy, unreliable politicians. And so I want to say to you that I hope that you will keep me in your prayers. If you don't believe in God, that's okay. Keep me in your best wishes, because I will tell you, this is going to be a tough year for them, and they're going to be really hating me because I'm going to keep bringing the truth. I have no intention of backing down. I feel like we're in a fight for the soul of our country, and we are fighting to take back this country from some very messed up individuals who they don't like America. They hate as far as I'm concerned, what you see with the Military Detention Bill, what you see with the Patriot Act, what you see with Bradley Manning, they are determined to deceive you as much as they can. What you see with the 9/11 investigation, the war on terrorism, and even if you don't care about 9/11 and you're like in your head, you're like, oh God, please not more 9/11. Please, we can't take this anymore. Please let that go. Everything about 9/11 is affecting you now. It is the war on terror that has been a fraud. I worked in anti-terrorism for a decade, and there is no external threat that is hurting the United States. The greatest threat that we have is that we are bankrupting our own economy. We are bankrupting our middle class. We are transferring wealth to the defense military industrial complex. And the only reason that there will ever be another attack on the United States is because of our own foreign policy aggression against other countries, and those other countries are going to be provoked into slamming back at us, okay? And it won't even be a country that does it. It will be a group of very frustrated, angry individuals who are going to attack us. And it's going to be because of what we are already doing. So I would urge everybody, we've got to stop any war with Iran. We've got to realize that we are destroying our own society. We are the greatest threats to ourselves. But you can imagine Congress is not going to want to hear this from me. And so I'm frequently accused of being paranoid, but often if you're paranoid, that doesn't mean to get you.
I feel like I was being
I
stopped from getting online tonight somehow because I was doing everything right. I don't understand what happened. It was really bizarre to me how I couldn't get online. It kept booting me right off again. So that to me is kind of telling. You know?
Yeah,
Bureau.
they are afraid. They are afraid. I mean, weird things happen when I do radio shows, Kathy. I'll do radio shows and I'll be starting to talk about something, and all of a sudden my phone will cut off.
I agree.
And it'll be like in the middle of saying a statement, and everything will go dead right at that point. So they are really afraid. They don't like the American people. They don't like this democracy. They really don't like democracy, I'm convinced. They feel that it is they recognize that power to the people, talking truth to them, they are very frightened because they've done such a mediocre job.
Yeah, they have.
Go ahead, Rand, and interject if you like.
No, that's good. No, I totally agree.
I don't think I want the truth to come out, because then all the truth's going to come out and the people are going to be really mad at that point. I'm talking about UFO truth, the money manipulation truth. I mean, these people think that the brokers and the banks have messed with Wall Street so much, they don't know the half of it. And if they knew all the story, they would really be up in arms about what's going on, because it's just amazing what they can get away with. They just pay a fine, keep doing business. You know, it makes no sense to me. These people should be in jail.
That's right. And the thing is that they are gifted at the corruption. They are gifted at manipulating the system and how to deceive the public. One of the things that I was attacked for recently, which is why I think that they may really come after me, is that I had protested embezzlement. I was protesting embezzlement of funds, $13 million from the 9/11 investigation. And I know for a fact that money was stolen from the 9/11 investigation and other terrorism investigations, but that's one of them. And it's an important one. Money was stolen, diverted into private bank accounts. Okay.
Why don't you explain?
Now, you would think that if I showed up on Capitol Hill and I went to the Senate Intelligence Committee and I went to Senator Dianne Feinstein's office, who is the chair of the committee, and I went to my own Senator, Barbara Mikulski of Maryland, who is also on the Senate Intelligence Committee, who is also, and these are supposed to be women advocates. You know, when come campaign time, these are proud women, feminist women who are defending, you know, the empowerment of women in society, and what a load of hogwash that is, it turns out. I was then contacted by the Capitol Hill police telling me that I should stop reporting thefts from the black budgets to members of Congress on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And I was like, wait a minute, you stop right there. That is their job. It is their job to watch that money. It is their job to conduct oversight of terrorism investigations. And if they're not capable of doing their jobs, they need to get out. They need to get off that committee, and they need to be retired from the Senate. If they're not capable of dealing with a constituent concern in the area of their special expertise on Capitol Hill, when it's dealing with national security, I said I have zero tolerance and zero patience for this. And that's why I'm telling you, I think that they are so, but they don't want to, they are cleaving to some, in politics we call it deniability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they are living, that's what's holding them together. If bad things are happening, their response to the intelligence community is, don't tell us. We want to be able to lie to our voters. We want to be able to deceive the public and commit this fraud. We are telling everybody that we're doing this we've got this outstanding track record in leadership performance. But in fact, they do not know how terrorism investigations are done. They are not watching the money. They're not. The oversight is appallingly bad. And it's not the intelligence community's fault. We have really stupid members of Congress who are doing a really lousy job. And the things that ordinarily the intelligence community would automatically correct in itself, because George Bush gutted the intelligence community. They, anybody who opposed his politics. See, this is the problem. What they did was they said anybody who opposes the politics on Capitol Hill, it's our fault, not their fault. It's not Congress's fault. It's our fault. And so if we oppose them, then we have to be removed because intelligence reporting is supposed to make politicians look good. And anybody with integrity will tell you that's garbage. You're supposed to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
Because, people can't make right decisions if they don't know what's really going on, and you can have terrible consequences if you start making up reports to this is, intelligence is above all supposed to be brutally honest. Did anybody do Obama any favors by failing to tell him that Libya, that the Libyan foreign fighters were all Al-Qaeda? No. Now look at Libya today. Libya has now been taken over by Islamic fundamentalists who are determined to institute Sharia law in the most severe way possible. I have personally seen videos of decapitations, castrations.
Oh, good Lord.
You know think how gross that is.
It breaks my heart.
To have a man and cut off his member on tape. I've seen it happen. I am not making this up. I've seen lynchings where they mobs attack black people and hang men, it's mostly men, hang them upside down. Their favorite way is to hang them by their feet from the top of a wall so that they're hanging head down. It's horrible. And then they grab them by their hair and they cut their heads off.
Oh, my God.
Hanging upside down in front of a screaming crowd of people.
And we're supposed to keep that all quiet.
We are keeping it quiet because the corporate media won't report it.
It's prettier that way.
It's prettier that way. But the thing is, did anyone do Obama a favor by not telling him the truth?
No.
No, they didn't. They really didn't. And intelligence reporting is, there's a reason why it's, sometimes it's quiet, but it is, sometimes, it's always, it's rare that it's spoken out loud, okay? It's rare that it's spoken out loud, like we're doing now. But the point is that what's happening is the intelligence community is now so desperate to try to pull things back on track that a lot of us feel we have to speak out loud because we have to, they shout from the rooftops that this is going in the wrong direction, and we're actually trying to save everybody and get everybody back on track, away from their bad decisions, because you're hurting yourselves very badly. You don't,
Susan,
you're sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted for our listeners who don't know, explain to them what an asset is, what your job actually was. So they understand how you were on the pyramid.
Sure. I was recruited by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agencies because of my anti-sanctions work. I was a private citizen who had a specialty, anti-sanctions and anti-war, and a gift apparently for anti-terrorism. Most people are amazed that I actually gave advance warning about the 1993 World Trade Center attack as well. I worked in anti-terrorism at a very, very, very high level for 10 years, and I was heavily controlled by the CIA. I had a year's worth of more than that, 18 months worth of weekly meetings with the CIA and Defense Intelligence Agencies before I was ever allowed to contact the Iraqi Embassy or the Libya House. I gave advance warning about the 93 World Trade Center attack in February. I met my Defense Intelligence handler in August or September of 1993. I met my CIA handler in September 94, and I made my first contact with Libya in May of 95. So this was like they had a really good grasp of who I was, and I was coached heavily, controlled heavily. Nobody should ever worry that a young American would be turned loose in New York City at the United Nations to go after Iraq and Libya. That would never have happened. This was like geopolitics up the yin yang, and everybody was concerned. Everybody was watching. We were sharing intelligence with British intelligence, French, I believe Israeli, and Egyptian intelligence, because they were all watching these. We did terrorism work. We did real terrorism work, and we were doing Lockerbie. And the problem was that we knew that Lockerbie was the original 9/11. Lockerbie was actually a terrorism attack intended to cover up the CIA's infiltration of heroin trafficking out of the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon during the Civil War. The CIA had infiltrated Islamic Jihad, trying to track down the location of hostages held in Beirut. I mean, talk about a wild movie. That was Terry Anderson, Terry Waite. Terry Anderson was the Associated Press reporter who was held for 7 years. Jerry Levin was the CNN bureau chief. He was held for 3 years. The CIA station chief in Beirut, William Buckley, was kidnapped and tortured to death, beaten to death with bricks and chains, and just brutalized. And then they dumped his gross, really gross stuff. And they dumped his beaten, shattered, pulped body at the front door of the CIA headquarters to say, he broke down before he died. And who could blame the guy? Who could blame the guy, right? I mean, that's just gruesome. But the CIA had the CIA considered that it had really good reason to try to get into Islamic Jihad, and Islamic Jihad was involved in heroin trafficking, so the CIA was like, okay, well, if we're going to find these people, we have to be dirty like that too. And that's the way it was. There was a reason for it. But somebody at the CIA team went rogue, or several people probably went rogue, and started telling Islamic Jihad every time the CIA was closing in. And so every time, the Delta Force was about to swoop down and grab these hostages, they'd be moved right at the critical moment. And so they began to think that somebody was ratting them out. And Defense Intelligence Agency, Dennis McKee, called in Washington and reported possible rogue agent, double agent. And the CIA sent a team from Washington with the FBI. They came to gather evidence. They were flying back to Washington on Pan Am 103 when the flight was bombed. Okay? And here's a curious thing. The State Department put out a memo telling everyone to get off Pan Am 103 on that date because they said the flight was going to be bombed. And so they warned the president of South Africa, and his delegation was traveling on that flight. They got off the plane. Other people from the State Department and other it was during the holidays, Christmas holidays, and so a whole bunch of government employees and military people got off the plane, and that opened up seats for a group of students from Syracuse University to get on the plane. Wow. And so then all these little kids, 18, 19-year-olds die on the flight. They're kids. To me, they're kids.
Sure they are.
They're barely children, and you save the government employees and throw the kids to throw these college students, to their deaths, and that's the dirtiness of Lockerbie. It's a very, very dirty case. But I was involved in all of these terrorism investigations and doing all this work with Libya and the Lockerbie trial, and we had done anti-terrorism at a very, very intensive level before we ever got to 9/11. I mean, everything I did was cutting edge of anti-terrorism for a decade, and that's the thing that when the government decided they were going to, we were not just a low-level team. Mm-mm. We were highly active. We were on the cutting edge. We dealt directly with Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi.
You're also connected, very connected, and you knew these people. You made deals for higher-ups to these people.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there was they had to take me out in order to cover up all the bad things that had happened, and to cover so that they could lie to you. And the problem is that every word out of their mouths, Kathy, is a lie. And they don't even, it's like I can't stand to listen to politicians talk about terrorism. I mean, it just sends me up the wall. When I hear I can't even listen to the Republican debates. I mean, my housemates are like, Susan, you're screaming at the television again. Your dogs are going to be terrified of you if you don't stop yelling at the television. I can't watch it. It just absolutely drives me nuts.
Well, Rand came on board with the whole 9/11 thing. I'll let him tell you, because go ahead, Rand. You take the floor. How you became to.
Well, I'm from upstate New York, about an hour and a half above the city. I used to go down all the time shopping with friends, and I was actually supposed to be on Canal Street that day, but it looked like it was going to rain, so we didn't go down. But I went down about 10 days later and got to as close as Canal Street, and it was still on fire, and everybody was crying in the street. It was just quite a scene. But that wasn't long before I started to question what I was seeing on TV and started to really research into it, and saw quite a lot of inconsistencies in the data about the towers, how they fell. I attended an A&E, that Architects and Engineers Conference.
Oh yeah, great.
Which shows about the thermite. It's quite compelling evidence that they present.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I was actually, I've never told this story, but I was locked up in prison with a woman from Japan, and she had like a lot of people. She was not special in this. She had an apartment across from the World Trade Center. And when there was dust that had come into her apartment, and she was very surprised by she wanted to know what kind of dust this was. So she did something unusual. She she bottled it up and sent it to be processed, because she wanted to have she had some money of her own, and so she had the ability to pay somebody to afford like a chemical. She could afford to hire a chemist to do a private analysis of this thing. And the government came in, swept down on her, grabbed up all the powder that was in her house, or her apartment, grabbed up all the powder from the laboratory
samples.
All the samples from the laboratory. But she had done something else. She had also gone to Japan, and so she had apparently taken some of this powder dust with her, because she was afraid that in the United States they would stymie the story. They'd suppress the information. So she figured that in Japan they'd give her a real honest analysis, because that's where she was from, and she trusted those people more. So she went overseas, and they actually came all the way to Japan and arrested her and took her back with them to New York City. And they actually extradited her. And she was like, and what they wanted was the dust. They wanted that dust.
I wonder if it was smart dust. Was it?
Well, it had to be like thermic dust. But it was an interesting thing that she and I were then locked up in prison at the same time, facing ridiculous allegations. And she was personally accused of making a false claim for damages from the 9/11 fund, and she said, "But here is the lease for my apartment, and here's the photographs of the building, which show that you can look out my window and see the ground zero of the World Trade Center, and very clearly this is the windows were smashed in my building, and it's ruined, and there's legitimate reasons here why I would have a claim.
I don't know why there's a question for the recency. I mean, obviously it happened.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But they threw it. She got 3
I think the
years
insurance
in prison
companies
for
were
it.
paid off too, Susan. I really do. I think the insurance companies had to be paid off.
Oh, of course.
They had to be.
And my judge in my case was Michael Mukasey, who was the handling the insurance case for Larry Silverstein.
Wow.
You do realize that my judge also had Larry Silverstein's case. So when we had my situation, think of it this way: we were going at the same time that he was facing Larry Silverstein, trying to get all that billions of dollars to make Larry Silverstein one of the richest men on the planet. At the same time, I was locked up in prison with the FBI and the full knowledge of the FBI of the 9/11 warnings. The U.S. Attorney knew. The U.S. Attorney's Office. Sorry. Let me explain. Okay. The whole time that Larry Silverstein is petitioning for his damages, I am in a separate court case in front of the same judge and petitioning Judge Mukasey, telling him that the FBI has verified my 9/11 warnings. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan has verified the 9/11 warnings. The Bureau of Prisons has verified the 9/11 warnings. And the U.S. Attorney General's office in Washington, D.C. has verified the 9/11 warnings. And all these people then are going in front of the judge and looking him in the eye and saying, Your Honor, we just don't know what she's talking about. Gosh, she keeps saying she warned about 9/11. Honestly, Your Honor, I don't know. Where did this come from? And, of course, it was all to protect Larry Silverstein. I ought to sue Larry Silverstein for this.
He's got the money.
Seriously.
And it would be a valid case, too. I mean,
yeah, it would be a valid case because I got him all his
harassment,
money.
definition of character, false imprisonment, everything. I mean, you should be able to sue the universe and get money as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But I'll tell you something. The funny thing is like the government, which is so afraid of the truth, is just not. It's like I always think of it that the government should like the Obama administration. I was attacked by the Bush administration, the Republicans. Now the Democrats are in power, and I always think to myself, why wouldn't the Democrats want to express their horror over this? Ordinary American people can see that this was a gross injustice that I was subjected to, and yet Obama takes the same tack as the Republican Party. He will not admit that 9/11 was an inside job. He will not admit that we had advanced knowledge of 9/11. He will not admit that locking me in prison was wrong. I mean, my attorney and I tried to talk with the Obama administration and the Senate Intelligence Committee. Right after the Obama came into power, right after his inauguration, we met with the Senate Intelligence Committee. We told them about the 9/11 warnings. And even so, they are still, to this day, they want to lie to America. They know very well that it's true.
They don't want anyone to know that they stole the gold.
True.
They don't want anyone to know that they stole the gold, and that's why they probably did all of this. That's got a lot. In my opinion, all this missing gold and money has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
It's all just
not.
Yeah, it has to have something to do with it. Susan, why don't you tell everybody, give your book a plug real quick? I mean, if you guys don't mind, I think we're just going to go right on through, since I was tardy for the party, and if you don't mind, we'll just go right on through till 10.
That's okay.
Right.
That's all right. My book is Extreme Prejudice, The Terrifying Story of the Patriot Act and the Cover-Ups of 9/11 in Iraq. I hope that you will all get it off Amazon.com. It is a first-person narrative, and it gives an entirely new, different perspective on 9/11 and Iraqi pre-war intelligence. It takes you inside the Iraqi Embassy, and it's not an academic book. It describes real conversations with actual diplomats and how this stuff really played out. and it's like getting a debriefing from it is a debriefing, but it's like a spy thriller. It's not an academic scholastic book. Some people are really afraid that it's going to be like this foreign policy tome, and it's nothing like that. If that's what you worry about, nothing to fear. And it also, the second half of the book is about the Patriot Act, and it goes inside my prison life on Carswell Air Force Base and the horrible, the terrifying experience. I was locked up. I was accused of being incompetent to stand trial, and I was sent for a psychiatric evaluation, which had to be, something straight out of Joseph Stalin and the Gulag age of the Cold War. It was Soviet-style psychology. If you oppose the government, there's something wrong with you. It was the most terrifying experience.
And they couldn't break you. They couldn't break you, Susan.
But
so
they
tried.
That
they had no idea.
Hard.
They couldn't understand why they couldn't break you. That, in my opinion, that probably had something to do with it, because they're like, this woman's got to be crazy. But it's just they're trying to make a smokescreen to something else. You know what I mean? Because you're so grounded and you're so firm in your stance, and you're not going to bend. Period.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate hearing that, because I will be honest with you. When I was locked up, the first few months that I was there, I was okay until they announced that they would not release me. The law allows them to hold someone 4 months, 120 days, in a competency evaluation, and everybody knew that it was garbage, and that we figured this was the only prison time they were going to get, and they were going to maximize their 120 days. However, what shocked everyone was when the government refused to release me. They said that they were fighting to detain me indefinitely, up to 10 years, with no hearing or trial. You think of how frightening that is.
I can't imagine being silenced, let alone locked up.
Yeah, and you're locked up in prison on a Texas military base, Carswell Air Force Base. And not only did they want to lock me up, but they were petitioning, which really was bad enough. Which was like 1,000 times worse is they petitioned the court for the right to forcibly drug me with Haldol, Ativan, and Prozac. And Haldol by itself is a rhinoceros tranquilizer. It renders you chemically lobotomized. You cannot walk, you cannot speak, you cannot write with a letter, you cannot eat with a fork or hold a cup to drink. You're dribbling out of your mouth, basically. Yeah, you're dribbling out of your mouth. It copies the effect of Parkinson's disease. It makes you a stone, a statue. It's a hideous thing, and they wanted to do that to me, and I was like, never. I don't care. We will fight this all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And they were really hoping, I think, that I would break down and they could give me a drug and then make big announcements on Capitol Hill. Oh, we had to drug her. Oh, we had to drug her. See, she's on a drug. She's on a drug. And that was what this was all about. It was, how do you make the politicians feel safe? Politicians have lied to America. How do you protect the politicians so that they don't lose their jobs in the next election? And that's why I'm telling you, in 2012, they are going to be, I fully expect, Kathy, honest to God, that they will come after me again. I really do. I think that because I am not a threat in terms of violence. I'm a threat I'm anti-violence. I'm against violence, but I believe that my knowledge is, and the threat of my knowledge, because it exposes this long-term deception and the whole fraud of the war on terrorism. It's a lie, a total fraud. The whole thing is a lie.
It's going to snowball to be a million things, and that's what they're scared of.
Yeah. And it would be so much easier if they would just do the right things. If they just, all Obama had to do was a few things. Close Guantanamo Bay, repeal the Patriot Act. Instead, he extends the Patriot Act. He gives us the Military Detentions Bill. He gives us, Libya. He gives us, wars in the Middle East that are crazy wars. We should not be fighting Syria. If Syria has a problem with its own people, that is their problem. Stay out of it.
They torture children, so why wouldn't they torture an adult? The government and these three-letter organizations, take children at as low as 3 years old and do MK Ultra mind-altering experiments with them, and they don't care. They don't care about the quality of that person's life. They don't care about the pain that they cause these people, and that's a big reason why I'm on my soapbox here today, and what has gotten me wanting to put the truth in the open. Because if they're going to do that to a child, what else are they going to do? What else are they capable of doing? These soulless people who are in control. I don't understand it. I don't understand how your handler could have sold you out like that. Someone you worked so closely with for so long, just washed his hands of you and said, she's nothing, and blew you away.
And I'll tell you why he did it. He had stolen.
To save his own ass is why he did it. Sorry.
Yeah, he had stolen at least $13 million off the 9/11 investigation, and we figure, my attorney and I figure, that he'd probably been stealing money from other terrorism investigations. But I happened to be with him when he was on the telephone with the CIA getting the money for the 9/11 investigation, and I was in his office, and I heard him talking, and then he got off the phone and was very excited, and he told me point blank how much money it was. And then I said, "Oh, that's fabulous. I need some of that money, because I've got my Iraqi intelligence agent who's going to help us with identifying terrorists in Baghdad, and I need to get paid for my work on Lockerbie."
Good with it, and they just want to line their pockets.
And he was like, "Well, yeah, I'm building a mansion in McLean, Virginia. I'm gonna buy a new piece of land and start construction again on my mansion." He had started one mansion with $8 million, wondering where that $8 million came from, by the way, and he didn't like that the way it was looking, so he thought he'd start over from scratch with a $13 million mansion. And again, you start to wonder, wait a minute, where did you get that $8 million? Where did you get
under the table somewhere?
Yeah. It's from your tax dollars.
No doubt.
But no, it is from your tax dollars.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the Congress, which thinks that I'm bad, see, here's the thing that's so crazy, Kathy. Congress looks at me and they think that I'm the bad guy because I'm exposing their deception and their poor oversight of this money. They're not angry at him for embezzling the money. They're angry at me for pointing out that he's embezzling the money. Do you see?
He got his hand caught in the cookie jar. That's why they're...
But they're like, take the cookie jar. It's okay if you take the cookie jar. But they say to me, you better not tell anybody he took the cookie jar.
Yeah.
We gave him that cookie jar. You don't tell anybody that he stole that money. You better stop talking about that. And that's the thing, that's what's so crazy, is that it's not the bad actions. It's not the fact that, they should be angry that the government knew about 9/11 and let it happen, at least. Let it happen, made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But they
I have
don't
no
care
doubt
about that. What they care about is protecting politicians so that they can hide from the truth about 9/11.
And so the lobbyists keep giving them lots of money.
Yes. Which is making them rich, which is what it's all about, Kathy.
Yes, absolutely. Their net worth increases amazingly fast for just being in office a year. Some of these guys.
That's right. That is totally right. And they, and that's what, my book, that's why I urge everybody to read Extreme Prejudice, The Terrifying Story of the Patriot Act and the Cover-Ups of 9/11 on Amazon, because you will come away with a completely different perspective on the war on terrorism. Even if you're not interested in 9/11, or you say, "Oh, I've heard about 9/11 for so long," you don't know anything. No offense. No. I know that there are people out there who are experts on 9/11, and I'm not trying to say that the experts on 9/11. David Ray Griffin knows a lot about 9/11. Okay, absolutely. Okay, and there's some really knowledgeable people about 9/11 out there. I'm with you on that. But the point is that the regular public, the Joe Blow public, just has not a clue in the world how bad these lies are. And the lies are huge. The lies are even bigger. David Ray Griffin sent me an email. He said, I want you to know that I believe you. You have credibility. I trust your credibility, and I believe you with what you're saying.
And these poor kids all over the country who wanted to fight for their country, that went into the war, had no idea what they were really getting themselves into. A lot of them just wanted a job because they didn't have one, and they go to fight for these wars and they don't even know what they're about, I really feel bad for them because a lot of them just want a job. That's why they go. They want a job. They want to go to school because that's the American dream. And why not? Why not feel like a hero while you're doing it? It's all a big lie.
Yeah. Well, and then they come back and they're very badly damaged. They're physically and emotionally damaged. They've got post-traumatic stress, a lot of them. There's one suicide attempt every 80 minutes by American soldiers.
Wow.
One every 80 minutes. More American soldiers die from suicide than die every year in battle. Okay, now think about that.
That's
it's
amazing.
Tragic.
Yeah, they're saying epidemic proportions at this point.
Yeah, epidemic.
The suicide rate of our troops.
Yeah, yes.
And these are the brave guys and women who sign up to fight for our freedoms, and they're committing suicide. You have to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Absolutely, Rand. I did not know that, you two. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's tragic. And Veterans for Peace is saying, but the thing is, Veterans for Peace is pushing for more medical care, more counseling services, intervention services, suicide hotlines, and they're trying to help these kids. But we don't have money for them. We have money for Richard Fuse to build a $13 million mansion. We have money for we call them Beltway bandits. You guys. They're Beltway bandits. That's the official term in Washington for defense contractors and intelligence contractors, surveillance contractors, who are grabbing up these contracts. Beltway bandits. We've got bazillions of dollars for these people, trillions of dollars to spend for Blackwater and KBR, but we don't have any money for the kid who's come back with an amputation or paralysis or head injury or suffering from severe post-traumatic stress. That kid we're going to send to prison. A lot of those people are going to end up in prison, or they're going to be homeless.
I saw a documentary on that they come back, with such bad post-traumatic stress that a lot of them end up in prison in a year from the post-traumatic stress and just striking out at people. Those people should get top-notch medical care, like the kind of medical care that they give people in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I bet you didn't get that kind of medical care, did you, Susan?
No.
Did you get on Guantanamo Bay?
I wouldn't have wanted anything from them, though. I have to tell you,
I bet you didn't. I'd be afraid they'd slip me something. I'd be afraid they'd implant me with something or kill me somehow. I don't want them touching me with anything.
Yeah, well, I was scared out of my mind.
I can imagine.
And the thing is that the military detentions bill makes this, again, why? Why are we doing this? The decisions we're making, we could just as easily make the right decisions. Why make the wrong decisions? Why not just, why not protect the values of the United States of America? What happened to the Constitution? I mean, I always thought
what Constitution? That's what I always say. Yeah. What Constitution? What Bill of Rights? Is that just like paper towels now?
Yeah. According to the politicians, it is, and they don't like it. They don't like it at all. They see it as a real threat to their ability. But we're setting up a situation where we could end up with martial law.
they want us to end up with martial law. In my opinion, it's all just an antagonistic parlay to martial law. I think.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right, and I think that, and that's why I really, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and I know that you've got a really good audience, Kathy. But I'll tell you something. We are at a point where I believe that the next terrorist attack will be a let it happen, make it happen kind of situation like before, where they decide that they probably are watching somebody right now. In my mind, they're probably watching it all play out right now, and they know who the groups are that would be looking for any kind of dirty bomb, kind of nuclear bomb, and at the right moment, when the government decides that it needs another attack, that group that is frustrated in its efforts right now will suddenly find that, oh, there's a nuclear bomb on the market to buy, and oh, here's the money to buy the bomb. Wow!
Isn't it funny how that happens?
Here's a way to ship the bomb. Oh my goodness! You know, you can ship it through Somalia and not run into pirates. You know, you'll find that that all these things that should block their actions, all of a sudden they'll have green light and they'll clear all the hurdles and obstacles, and they will be able to bring a bomb into the United States or take one of our own bombs and use it against us. But it'll be like a dirty bomb situation, and it'll target the financial district of Manhattan, and then they'll say, oh, I guess we better declare martial law.
Exactly.
Oh, well, all those freedoms on the Internet are now gone because we can't have any of you people propagating sedition and demanding freedom in our country when we've just had this horrific attack.
Mm-hmm. And I was just speaking to you today about that website that is on Facebook that is putting, if anyone mentions a keyword like terrorism, the Homeland Security, SOPA, or anything like that, your posts go on a Department of Homeland Security page without your knowledge. So it's like, what is this?
I must have like 1,000
We're in trouble,
pages.
Kathy.
Yeah, I was all over that page yesterday.
I think I must be like filling up their whole computer.
I posted it on the
Like,
White House. I said, come and get me if you're man enough.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like, you know, I keep joking with everybody that I'll be the first American ever indicted twice on the Patriot Act. But it's not funny.
No,
I mean, no offense. It is funny, but it is funny. It's very funny. But I'll tell you that as I go about my day, it's like, you know, maybe it's because of the anniversary. You know, it's like as I approach my arrest was on March 11th, 2004, and it's every year as I get closer to the month of March, I start to remember the shock, the horror of the amazement. I was astounded when I saw the FBI agents on my front porch and how quickly the corporate media abandoned me, like after 24 hours. They were like, oh, can't cover this story anymore.
So
There's no news here. No news, folks. Don't worry. Everything's under control. The government's got everything under control. And all of it, you know, and they refused to cover the 9/11 warnings. We tried. See, here's the thing. Everybody's presuming that I just kept my mouth shut. We didn't try to keep my mouth shut. I tried to talk. And but at the time there was no blog radio. Oh no, let me rephrase that. There was blog radio, but it was so new in 2004. It was really new, and I did not know my way around that milieu because I had been intelligence, and we were taught to be classified and secretive about everything we did. Paranoid, you know. My life was covert black ops all the way. I had Libya and Iraq. You just took that stuff to your grave. Mm-hmm. You didn't talk about it ever. My
if you
father
didn't,
and my brother
you weren't a good American.
did not know that I was an asset. I mean,
wow.
Because for all those years, for 10 years that I'd been an asset, it was real cloak and dagger stuff. And it was like, you know, I mean, I had boyfriends who were ambassadors at the United Nations, and I dated the occasional arms trader. My CIA handler gave one interview to the New York Times, and he said, well, she would never be a foreign agent because they would know that she was going to tell us everything. And he admitted that he had weekly meetings with me. And he said one more thing. He said, and by the way, she dates arms traders. Now, at the time, I was like, why would he say that? Oh, my God, that makes me sound like a horrible person. And I have only done it once or twice, really. Not extensively.
I'm sure there are very nice arms dealers.
Yeah, no, they're not. No, they're not. One of them was Gaddafi's bagman. I had an affair with Gaddafi's bagman, which is classified up the wazoo.
That's pretty
but the point is, but the reason Richard Fuse did it was he was sending a message to the CIA. She is not this little Chiquita here is not some little female who's done nothing. I had the highest level security contacts that would be imaginable to me. I mean, you can't even imagine. I mean, like, I dated ambassadors on the Security Council. I socialized with these people. They'd visit me in Washington. We'd go out and party and such. You know, in Washington, they'd come down from New York to see me, and I'd go up to New York to see them. And we were, so it was. I had quite an interesting life, but the way I was portrayed in the media by the New York Times and by, the corporate media, CNN, Fox News Channel, was like this little flaky little Chiquita running around. I was like, I was anything but that. There was nothing remotely similar to reality in anything that they were telling you. And we tried to tell these reporters about the 9/11 warnings. The New York Times had 4 confirmations of the 9/11 warnings within weeks of my arrest. The CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, my friend Park Godfrey, who testified in court, and my brother. And my brother's kind of flaky, so I could see that. But with the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, you can get by with a flaky brother. But the point is there were 4 confirmations, and the New York Times squashed the story, and instead of giving an honest, straightforward account of what happened, they attacked me and tried to destroy my reputation so that other journalists would not come listen to what I had to say. It was appalling. Nobody could believe it.
I think they wanted to make you look like a double agent. And I had a question to ask you, Susan,
Sure.
if I may.
Sure.
During the whole time that you were an asset and doing what you were doing, was there ever a time that you just wanted to quit, or did you just keep forging through, hoping you could change and make a difference?
I loved doing it. It was it's a real, it's very exciting. My team did the Lockerbie negotiations with Libya. My team did the preliminary talks with Iraq's ambassador on resuming the weapons inspections. We did the 9/11 investigation. We had a comprehensive peace framework with Iraq that had been developed from November 2000 right up until March 2002, and it was all in place a year before the invasion. And then, and that was something that Americans had no idea even existed. And I spent the year before the invasion taking that up and down Capitol Hill, going to meetings. I live in Washington, so I would go down to, just jump on the metro and go down. Very easy for me to do. And I was running around Capitol Hill telling everybody about the peace framework. Joe Biden had it. John Warner had it. The Senate Richard Lugar had it on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. All of these, Chuck Hagel had it. The House Judiciary Committee had it. The members of the Black Caucus had it. You'd be amazed how many people had this. Darrell Issa had it, who's a big Republican in California. Jane Harman had it from the House Intelligence Committee. And you'd be amazed how many people then turned around and lied to their voters because they did not want to acknowledge that there was a different way that would have resolved made the entire war avoidable and unnecessary. Every single objective that you wanted to achieve could have been accomplished without firing a shot. And that's the thing, that these members of Congress have led us down it's like the Pied Piper, playing their flutes, seducing the people, calling the people to chase after them down this path to war, and you never had to go there at all. We have wrecked our country for nothing, for no reason at all. We never had to do it.
I'm with you on that one. It's just senseless.
Well, but
terror.
let me just tell you guys so that you really understand. And I want to talk about this in terms of Bradley Manning, because everybody's mad at it. Not everybody. A lot of your listeners will be very sympathetic to Bradley Manning, and Bradley Manning we expect a decision sometime this week on whether or not he will face a court-martial, and we expect that he will. And they are threatening him with life in prison. And so I want to draw some parallels out for all of you, because I want you to. I think that he deserves a lot more sympathy that he's getting. I realize you sympathize with him, Kathy, but I want your audience to really think about this kid. He's 20. He started off at 23. I believe he's now 25. He's very, very young, and I want you to think about the fact that he went public with information that was already known to the Iraqi people. He's been accused of aiding and abetting the enemy. But in fact, the enemy, the, quote, Iraqi people, who, by the way, are supposed to be our allies, we're supposed to be over there liberating them, so they're supposed to be our friends, okay? The Iraqis are living through the U.S. occupation. They know very well what we did over there. This is not news to them at all. Their family lives through it. Their cousins, their brothers, their children, their friends, their neighbors. Everybody's going through this. So they don't need Bradley Manning to tell them anything. Bradley Manning is informing the people. He's the American people. He's informing us. We are the ignorant parties. We are the ones who do not understand why this occupation has been such a catastrophe, why it failed so badly, why did America lose this war. And Bradley Manning has shown it to us so that now we understand.
Yes.
Okay? He did something that was important. He exposed war crimes by American soldiers. And tragically, the war crimes are real. And as a military personnel has an obligation to show criminal activity when he first takes it to his superiors and reports it to his superiors. If they refuse to listen, then he must take broader action. And it is necessary to do that to protect the overall mission. Because if there's blowback from the mission, then that's undermining the operations that American military is running. Okay? So by exposing war crimes, he is in fact stopping actions which are provoking attacks by the enemy on the U.S. soldiers. It's like Abu Ghraib was a catastrophe, but we had to expose Abu Ghraib in order to stop it. Okay, that's what Bradley Manning has done.
Right.
Now, Bradley Manning went the public way. I went the back way. I did it, quote unquote, through proper channels. When I wanted to testify, I didn't go to WikiLeaks. I wish I had. If I'd had a WikiLeaks, the world would be a different place right now.
Because you thought the proper channels were going to protect you, and they didn't.
That's right. And I thought the proper channels would have an obligation to act with integrity, and that was John McCain and Trent Lott. And people say, well, why they're Republican? And it's like, yeah, the Republicans controlled the Presidential Commission on Iraqi Pre-War Intelligence. If I wanted to testify, I had no choice but to go to the gatekeepers and take my case and say to them, I want to testify. Hello, I am here. I want to give my testimony to America.
Because that's Congress. Protocol for a person like you. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's what you're supposed to do. And it was not, and what they did to me shows what they're really they were so threatened by the possibility of exposure. It wasn't that I broke the law. In 5 years, they could never take my case to trial. In 5 years, they refused to give me a trial. They refused to give me a hearing because they knew the 9/11 warnings were going to come out in the hearing. They refused to do that. But they were so afraid of exposure of the ideas. They wanted to protect their deception. And so I want everybody to think about this and think about Bradley Manning and think about me. They're not angry that Bradley Manning is actually threatening to tell something to the Iraqis that the Iraqis don't know. They are afraid that Bradley Manning and Susan Lindauer are going to tell the American people something you don't know. And then you are going to judge your politicians. You're going to hold them responsible for their actions. And God forbid, you might even throw them out of office. And they will lose the perks and benefits and that $170,000 a year and cushy, all expense paid lifestyle.
And being able to be rich on insider trading and not get held accountable for it.
That's
Who would
right.
want to give that up? That's probably one of the biggest perks. Forget about their salary. They can make tons of money knowing what the winning lottery ticket is tomorrow.
That's
why
right.
they get
There
to
you
read
go.
and sell their souls.
That's right. That's
we
right.
had a question in the chat room, if I can ask you.
Sure.
Someone wanted to know, Tommy V wanted to know how real were the rumors of North Korea nuke plant accident from last week?
Oh, I don't know. I would not be surprised. I think that they are. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not up on North Korea.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm not up on North Korea.
Rand, did you have something you wanted to ask? Because I feel bad not. I've been talking too much. Do you have something you'd like to add?
Oh no, she's just amazing source of information. I'm just enjoying hearing all this. I'm kind of curious.
I do tend to talk your ear off, so please.
Oh, it's all good.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Rand.
In Iraq, I'm curious. I mean, I know we've pretty well destroyed their economy and devalued their currency. Any idea if we're going to allow them to have any semblance of some of their wealth back, or are we going to just continue to control their country, kind of, as a puppet?
Here's the deal. Here's the tragedy and the crazy thing about Iraq. We have, before the war ever started, the United States had the sanctions in place, which killed 1.7 million human beings, wiped out literacy in a single generation, destroyed income in the second largest oil producing nation in the world, became one of the poorest nations of the earth. Okay, we are delusional if we believe that we have any sphere of influence in Iraq at all. We don't. And Maliki has been the president of Maliki is hated by the Iraqi people. Maliki is only holding on to power because he caters to Iran. And he is such a weak individual. He's no Saddam Hussein. I mean, you can hate Saddam Hussein, but let me tell you something about Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein could run that country. Saddam Hussein, you may hate Saddam. You may all say, oh, how can you say this, Susan Lindauer? He was able, I'm telling you, swear to God, on a stack of Bibles, he was capable of motivating the Iraqi people through pride and nationalism and strength of personal will to rebuild their country under sanctions. I was so impressed when I saw what they had done. They were fighting their way through every challenge that the United Nations put up to them. And they were proud Iraqi people, starving, desperately poor, but honorable and strong, just incredible, extraordinary resilience. And I have to tell you, you're going to hate me for it, I respected Saddam Hussein.
Nah, I could never hate you, Susan.
Well, but some people will say, "Oh, how could you say that? Oh my God!"
You cannot like someone but respect them just the same.
Yeah, that's right. That there you go. Thank you. But I'll tell you, Maliki, I despise him. He is weak, sniveling. He is not. He has no courage, no vision, no leadership. He has been willing to destroy his people just so that he could be president of the country. He has done absolutely nothing for them. He has no capability of doing anything for them, and he's not even trying. But here's the rub. Along the way, the United States destroyed the oil infrastructure of Iraq. The pumping stations are ruined. The pipelines are ruined. It is now cost prohibitive to get the oil out of the ground in Iraq. So here you have the world's second largest oil reserve, and we can't get to it because we don't have any money to
rebuild
it. That's going
to lead to another question, if you don't mind, that we had in the chat room earlier. I can't see the chat box because there are technical issues today, so I'm trying to answer some questions. These are about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to go to that question as soon as I can find it.
Real quick, I was under the impression Maliki had ties to the IMF, which would kind of explain why he really doesn't care much about Iraq itself. He's just, working for the money guys.
Oh, I think that's true. Maliki is he has no constituency in Iraq. It's hard to imagine how the only way that he could get into power, you will recall that there was like months where there was no government in Iraq because Maliki had barred 511 candidates from running for office, and then when he still lost the election, he assassinated everyone who was talking out against him, and he just killed them off until they were all gone. And then he said, "Oh, now I have the majority. Now we have a government," and that's one way of doing it. Did it. That's one way of doing it. But the thing is, the United States has lost the oil. We have lost the hearts and minds of the Iraqi people for perpetuity, for generations to come. And Iran has gained an ally. Remember the old adage, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." And I promise you that from now until the end of time, for the next 1,000 years, Iraq and Iran are going to be tight. Anything that Iran wants, they will get. If the United States is expecting that the United States will use Iraq's territory to launch a war on Iran, we have totally miscalculated. It will never happen. If we were to try to do that, the Iraqi people would rise up and attack us and join the Iranians against us.
Susan.
And one more thing that I have to say that will be very upsetting to some people. The lesson of the Iraqi war for Iran is that they must have nuclear weapons. Iraq was attacked by the United States because it had no capability to mount a proper defense. It was weak, it was a power vacuum, and the United States found it irresistibly attractive. Iran has learned that lesson. We will never persuade Iran to embark on nuclear disarmament. That is also a lost cause. We are never going to be able to do it.
Not to mention the weaponization of space.
Weaponization of space,
That's another scary topic. But I had a question for you from the chat room, if I can ask.
Sure.
Are you aware of Dr. Stephen Greer or the Disclosure Movement? And if so, do you know anything about the suppression of UFO truth and free energy technology?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I think that has a little bit to do with it, too.
I don't know that. I don't know that stuff.
It's all connected somehow.
Well, the military, I remember, I'll just tell you a funny story, that my defense intelligence handler used to insist that Americans, that Roswell was real, and that there had been space technology that had crashed, that had crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, and that's where the world got its extraordinary jumps and leaps through several generations of technology, because we were able to go from like the horse and buggy to the car to we made leaps through several generations of technology right in that critical 20-year span of time, because we had gained that we could study how these UFOs had done it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what he said.
I think it's pretty much a given at this point. They don't want to disclose that, because then, like I said, if they disclose everything about 9/11, then that'll come out too. A lot of things will come out if they start telling truths, and they don't want to do that. Is there any other topics, as we have about 6 minutes left, Susan, that you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
Please, everybody, please get my book, Extreme Prejudice, The Terrifying Story of the Patriot Act and the Cover-Ups of 9/11 in Iraq. We are scratching the surface here about Iraq and 9/11 and the war on terrorism and the Patriot Act. And my book, the first half of it is the real intelligence. It's like it goes inside the Iraqi Embassy and inside prison on a Texas military base. And it is the real story of the Patriot Act from the defendant's chair, and it is a shocking story that you need to know in this time, because I was the first, I will not be the last. And with the new military detentions law, everybody's saying that is focused on terrorism. It is not terrorism.
I had a dream that they were going to drag me away from being on the radio show. They would drag me away to arrest me while I was talking live, and it's not so far-fetched, really.
It's not too far-fetched. In fact, it's tragically going to be commonplace, I'm afraid, that they have defined sedition in a very broad way of criticizing the government. If you are challenging the authority of the 1%, if you are threatening the comfort zone of the 1%, it is not necessary to commit an act of violence or even to plan an act of violence. It is just enough that you would cause someone to lose office. That's what they did to me. I wasn't even threatening them. I was asking to testify on Capitol Hill, but they extrapolated 10 steps and said, oh boy, if we let her testify on Capitol Hill, we're going to lose our jobs. Therefore, she is a threat to our status quo. Therefore, she is an enemy non-combatant. What? And I'm anti-war. Go figure. How are you an enemy non-combatant if you're opposed to killing people?
No, you're one of the most. I don't read auras, but if I could, I think your crown chakra is golden, honey.
No.
There's nothing anybody can tell me about you that's bad, because you are a brave individual. And one thing
Kathy, I love you. You're great.
One thing I can't stand is a liar and people who waver, and ride the fence. It just makes, and I hate bullies, so that's why I'm here. And I want to give a shout out to Truth Connections on Facebook to welcome everyone to join our Facebook page, and keep coming back to the show. Promise you next time it's going to be more fluid and have a lot better production value, so I really appreciate everybody hanging in there today with us. And I wanted to give a shout out, a side note shout out to a friend of mine who also wrote a book, if you don't mind. Is that okay, Susan?
Sure.
Okay. He was your Facebook friend, too, until Facebook kind of kicked him off Facebook. It's a book by Robert Duncan O'Finian called Innocence Turned Deadly. And
great.
I'd like to tell everybody to try to get that book as well, because these two books are the must-read, in my opinion. I hope everyone can get that book and yours as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I loved it, and like I said, we are the next 12 months until the elections are going to be very dangerous. for me, for not dangerous. Dangerous is a good word.
No,
I'm sorry, it's a good word. It is a word because we're going to be talking truth to power, and they are not going to like what we have to say, and they are going to be very agitated towards us, and I don't expect them to be passive in how they handle it. But if you hear that I've been arrested, I want you to know I am strong, I am innocent, and I will be fighting for a trial. And anything bad they say about me, I will be ready to beat the crap out of them in court.
And I will be on a soapbox yelling for you. Know that.
Okay. Well, listen.
If
they do, I hope you will replay this show because I tell you, Kathy, I have in my gut. I feel like they're going to want to take me out. I know I'm paranoid. I know I'm paranoid.
You're probably very right in assuming that. They've killed a lot of people. They've killed a lot of. They killed that biological scientist in Delaware. He's found in a dump. You know why? Because he knew something. Scientists have been killed left and right. Whistleblowers have been killed left and right. This stuff has got to stop. You know, how many soulless beings are running this planet, and you know, the people that kill them probably get killed. We don't even hear about those people. You know?
Yeah, the new term is suicided.
Yeah, I would never commit suicide. Everybody laugh in their face if you ever hear that I've been suicided. Just know I have strong religious values that would prohibit me from ever doing that. Even under indictment, even when I was locked in prison, I was never tempted to commit suicide. I think the world is a beautiful, glorious place, and even in the worst days, you have a beautiful sky. And even when I was locked up in prison and I was terrified, I was never tempted to commit suicide. Never, 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 never. So anybody tries to tell you that, that is a lie.
Well, we're almost out of time, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Rand. Thank you so much for being here, Rand.
The question is, what's real? What's deception? What should we be paying any attention to? What is it that's driving us insane?
He knew the world would not be the same.
Something happening here.
Truth Connections.